Hello, my name is John van Eenwyk. I am a retired Jungian analyst, retired clinical psychologist, and for somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 years, I've been working with trauma. Trauma is, of course, clinically the easiest diagnosis to make because we are all traumatized. We have all been traumatized in one way or another. But the interesting thing about that is that some of those of us who have been the most traumatized do the best afterwards. Not all of us, actually, not very few of us. And some of us who have been really not traumatized much at all are deeply, deeply affected. And this, of course, then requires an approach that's different than a cognitive rational approach, because cognition really only deals with the surface thoughts about the trauma. But trauma affects us very deeply. It affects us emotionally. And this is something that in treating trauma or even understanding our own trauma, we have to know. We have to realize that the non rational, or what we might call the unconscious aspects of trauma, are not really accessible to rationality. And so a Jungian and a Jungian psychodynamic approach is really about the only effective way to get at that. And it can be very interesting to take a look at that. And of course, that's what we're going to be doing in our lectures. We're going to do such things as look at what the prevailing definition of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, is these days. We'll cover that in the first session. The next session will be on sexual trauma, which unfortunately is pretty common in many ways of that. And that often occurs before rationality is even up and running. Childhood molestation, for example. And how do we get at that? And then we're going to talk about childhood trauma generally. The book that I wrote, Clinical Chaos, talks about the kinds of differentiation that occurs between the unconscious adaptation to what's going on in our lives and the later on 6, 7, 8-year-old conscious rational understanding of it, and how those can be in conflict. And then in the last session, we'll deal a little bit with some of the deeper psychodynamic and even to some degree neuropsychological aspects of trauma. So I'd like to invite you to the course. Love to see you there. Just let us know if you'd like to join.